The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Brought to you by Macy's Grocery Stores. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
Alex, I don't know what it is, but maybe it's just a weekend after hearing a lot of Gus Johnson where I just want to go, ha ha, the Big 12. It's football. It's America. It's KSL. It's the Sports Zone.
Something's happening in Provo.
There's some special brewing. There's a six-pack Cosmo. He's dropping them fire knives. It's America. It's Fox. It's the Big 12.
You're Gus Johnson. There's a guy on Instagram that does the Chris Collinsworth. He just goes, oh wow, like everything's just about Patrick Mahomes just being in love with it. Oh, what Patrick Mahomes? It's just like, this is special. And he just laughs the whole time. Oh, my
down
goodness.
the sideline. Jake Retzlaff.
And then he'll go, a touchdown. Wildcats. You're like, geez, dial it back a little bit. Gus Johnson. You didn't think you were going to get a bunch of Gus Johnson impersonations on Sunday morning, but welcome to it. Yes, First and 12, brought to you by Macy's. Happy shopping, everybody. Mitch, let's jump in a little bit. This is one of our favorite segments, and there's always a little bit of bickering back and forth. It always takes us a minute to really kind of figure this out, but it's our weekly Big 12 Power Rankings. Let's just get right to it.
The Big 12 Power Rankings. A weekly rank of all 16 programs, from the elite to the bottom dwellers.
The elite for the third consecutive week. Checking in at number one as we dive in to the new edition of the Big 12 Power Rankings here on First and 12. BYU checking in at number one once again, 6-0, 3-0 in the Big 12. Cougars are flying high after that dominant win over Arizona.
You know, and I think people who do push back a little bit at that, and they'll go, yeah, but what about Iowa State? They're more consistent. They're the ones that are pretty scary. The reality is that BYU has kind of by far the best resume of any of these teams. On top of the fact that they're undefeated and they're 3-0 in conference play, they have the best resume. And as Kansas State continues to win, as SMU continues to not – I mean, SMU is as shocking as anything to me. And the one loss that they have is to BYU, who, by the way, held them to 0 touchdowns. All they do now is score touchdowns by the Grundle every game. And so they are there's a reason BYU's at the top, and until further notice, they're going to be there for a while. I mean, you can't help but keep putting them there. Iowa State is number 2. Kansas State, after sneaking out that win in Colorado, Kansas State is one of the tougher teams in the conference, Mitch, and I think that them at number 3 is a good spot. I'm interested because the Texas Tech being at 4, they're an undefeated team. They didn't play this week, so that you always get kind of dinged a little bit when you don't move at all because you just didn't do anything. But Texas Tech hasn't lost a game in conference, and Kansas State has. So is it just because we're not used to putting Coach McGuire and his guys anywhere near the top because we're like, well, we've been fooled by this guy before?
To me, it's a situation where Kansas State, their lone loss is to team number 1. And, yes, it was a blowout loss, but the bounce-back performances since have been really impressive from Kansas State. And, you know, Texas Tech to this point, their wins are ASU, solid win, Cincinnati, Arizona. I just don't think there's that marquee win yet for
They got that
for
overtime
Texas
win against
Tech.
Abilene Christian. Don't forget about that, Mitch.
And the thing is, too, is that I do believe Texas Tech's defense has gotten a lot better, and that was a big question coming into Big 12 play. But I still want to just see a little bit more because, I feel like the offense from Texas Tech has done enough where they've had games where they've been the Texas Tech of old with Leach and when they were flying high with Cliff Kingsbury and Graham Harrell. You just tried out all the names from back in the Big 12 South Division days when they were just a perennial 7-4, 8-5 team every single year.
Right.
But I still want to see just a little bit more. Maybe we won't have that answer clearly until maybe November when they take on Iowa State. But as long as they keep staying the course and winning ball games, hey, Texas Tech's going to control their destiny. But I still want to just see a little bit more from them, because when you put bring in everything together, there's still a little bit more questions compared to the three teams above them.
Arizona State is 5 after the win over Utah. You could maybe even make the argument that they should be up a little bit higher, but again, they have a loss in conference play. Colorado at 6, West Virginia at 7, and West Virginia, we're like waiting for them to be better than they have been. And that's a tough one, because I do think that they're better than a lot of these teams that are on here, but they just have had weird moments. They've had a tough schedule. And their 3 losses have been against pretty decent teams.
Well, not only decent, undefeated teams.
Right.
They are – so West Virginia has played a really gauntlet of a schedule. They played 2 of their rivals in non-conference. It has been a difficult schedule. I mean, I know Penn State this weekend, but, West Virginia is a good football team. They just – a little bit missed opportunity, though, at home against Iowa State. Underwhelming performance, I thought, from the Mountaineers. I didn't think we'd be talking about this team in the middle of the pack in the Big 12. I've been kind of sleeping on them for a while, but Brendan Sorsby, the quarterback for the Bearcats, Cincinnati checks in at number 8. Sorsby has been a pleasant surprise. This offense is much better than I thought they would ever be this season, and Scott Satterfield's turning things around in year 2. They got a top 25 passing attack in college football, Cincinnati, and I did not see that coming. So Cincinnati, they are trending up, a number 8 team after taking down UCF on the road this weekend.
Arizona 9. Utah is at 10. We've hit double digits with Utah right now. And part of that
too big of a fall?
No, because look at the teams in front of them. Arizona, they just lost to them. Cincinnati, better than we thought they'd be. West Virginia, tougher than we know. Colorado is 4-2, but it's like a different direction, trending 4-2. Utah went 4-0 and have lost 2 in a row. And right now, it doesn't look like the ship is going to get righted anytime soon, unless they can figure something out miraculously with the health of Cam Rising. Baylor 11 in a bye week this week. Houston also didn't play, but they're at 12. TCU is 13. Oklahoma State 14. Oklahoma State, of course, still looking for their first win in conference play this season. They're 0-3 in conference play. UCF may be the biggest shock to me in terms of teams that are at the very, very, very bottom. But, of course, the one that's shocked everybody and continues to be really, really bad. Even in their bye weeks, we barely thought about them, the 1-5 Kansas Jayhawks. So there you go. There are the power rankings, Mitch. I think we got it right again this week. It's another week that we kind of jammed on all this. It's getting harder and harder because the middling teams, it's a lot of teams in the just squarely planted in the middle. They don't feel like getting worse or getting any better.
It's going to be interesting to see, this upcoming week, what Oklahoma State does at quarterback, if they continue with Alan Bowman coming out of the bye, or if they go with Garrett Rangel at QB. Some real interesting questions there. Houston's got a little bit of momentum after that breakthrough win with Chris at quarterback, and UCF is fading with their new quarterback situation. In Kansas, will they, they showed signs of life against ASU before the bye, but still they go then on a bye, and are they going to bounce back after 5 consecutive losses? Like, what's fun about this league is that even those bottom teams, you feel like if they get it right for 60 minutes, they could win. I mean, we're talking about this conference every single week. It was amazing this past weekend. We don't dive much into the Vegas lines, but every game was about a 3-point spread. And that is just hyper competitive, and it's almost NFL-like with how close those spreads are. Yeah. No league provides that level of parity and competitiveness. And so these teams at the bottom, yes, it feels like, their records aren't good, but don't be surprised if they spring an upset on one of those teams at the top if they can, get it right for one day. And I think that's kind of the fun aspect of this conference.
Well, let's take another break here. Our program, as always, brought to you by the good folks at Macy's Grocery Store. Get the freshest fruits and vegetables from local farms and your local favorite brands. Macy's, happy shopping. We'll take a break. We'll come back. When we return, we've got a peek into what next week looks like. And the schedule gets more interesting as we start going along here. So just stay right here with us. It's 1st and 12. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry, right here on KSL News Radio and on the KSL Sports Zone.